So hello there, and welcome back to another Night to the Movies podcast. I'm Sprite Knight, and in these podcasts, I like talking all things movies and TV, and whatever I want, whenever I want. And in today's podcast, I'm reviewing the new James McAvoy horror movie, Speak No Evil. So, let's get into it, shall we? Speak No Evil, as I already said, is the new horror movie starring James McAvoy alongside Aisling Francisco, apologies if I mispronounced her name, Scooter McNairy, and Mackenzie Davis. And this film is a remake of a Danish movie with the same name, which came out 2 years ago. I think it came out in 2022. So yeah, that'll be 2 years ago. Yes, this movie is a remake of a Danish horror movie with the same name. However, I should say, I've never seen the Danish movie, so there'll be mostly no comparisons to the original Speak No Evil in this review today. But I wanted to see this film because I have been a fan of James McAvoy ever since I saw him in Starter for 10, X-Men First Class, and I saw him in something else which is escaping me right now. Oh, Penelope, that was it as well, because he plays a love interest to Christina Ricci in the film Penelope, which I actually quite like. I don't care what anyone says, I think that's it's one of my guilty pleasures, if you will. So yes, I've been a fan of James McAvoy for a very long while, and when I saw the trailers for this film and I saw that he got mad in this movie, that excited me, because anytime James McAvoy shows his range as an actor, I get excited. You know, I loved his performance in Split and Glass, and his performance in the trailers for this film looked like he was channeling his performance in those two movies. So that excites me quite a bit. Plus, I liked the look of the trailers. I mean, I must admit, I've got kind of sick of seeing the trailers for this movie over the past couple of months because, you know, when you go to the cinema as often as I do, you do keep seeing the same trailers, and I kept seeing the trailer of this movie. I did get a bit sick of it because of the amount of times I saw it, but I suppose that's my fault for going to the cinema too often. Don't think it is, by the way. But anyway, you know, the point I'm making is, I did get a bit sick of the trailers, but I did like the trailers for this movie. You know, they made the film look disturbing, they made the film look brutal, and they made the film look they made this film look like it was going to be a very good psychological horror movie or suspenseful thriller, which I was all in for. So that is why I went to go and see the movie early today. Honestly, I've just come back from watching it at the cinema, and the Google plot synopsis for this film goes as follows. A dream holiday turns into a living nightmare when an American couple and their daughter spend the weekend at a British family's idyllic country estate. And that's pretty much all I need to know about Speak No Evil before seeing it. And honestly, I really liked this film. I thought it was... I'm surprised how much I liked it, because I went into the film, you know, wanting to love it, as I do with every movie I watch, but also feeling a bit like, this might be a bit of a bore to sit through. I'm not that excited about seeing it, and you know, is it going to be anything special? And I came out of the movie going, you know what? That was a worthwhile watch. The film does a really great job in its first half, well, in its first 2/3, at making you feel uneasy, like something is very off, and it doesn't really reveal that something is very off until like the hour and 20-minute mark. That's when it felt like, how long is the movie? I'll just check now. I haven't even checked how long it is. Okay, it was an hour and 50 minutes, and yeah, I'd say about the hour 20-minute mark, the twist is revealed. There's a twist that explains why James McAvoy's character is the way he is in this movie. Everything leading up to that twist felt very off, and the film did a very good job at making you feel like something isn't right here from the get-go. Something isn't right with these characters, with James McAvoy and his family, and something isn't right with the setting when you get to the British countryside setting in like about the 10-minute mark of the movie, because the film starts off in what I think is Italy. I've never been there, so I can't remember if it is Italy for certain, but it looks like Italy, if I remember correctly. Yeah, so the film starts off in Italy, and then about 10 minutes later, you get to Britain, and you get to this countryside where most of the film is set, where the rest of the film is set. And once you get there, I mean, the whole film, you feel off. Like, in the first 10 minutes, as soon as you meet James McAvoy's character, something feels off. You know, he's got bad news written all over him. But once you get to the countryside setting, everything feels more off. Like, nothing feels like it really fits together until the twist happened. And the twist was surprising. I didn't see it coming. Genuinely. And also the twist made sense with the title of the film, because I went into the movie going, why is this film called Speak No Evil? And then once I got to the twist in the movie, I was like, oh, that's why it's called. And I was like, yeah, I get it now. I get it. And I like that about it. I like that the title made sense when the twist happened, and also that I didn't see the twist coming. And the second half of the movie, it didn't quite live up to the first half of the film, because the first half of the film has this brilliant build-up, intention, where you're trying to guess what's going on, but you can't quite put your finger on it. And the second half of the movie doesn't quite live up to the first half of the movie, in my opinion, but it was still good. It was still the last... not really the second half of the film, actually. The last third of the film still worked, in my opinion, and was still not nail-biting. Yeah, and it was satisfying as well. I left the cinema going, yeah, that was, as I mentioned, a worthwhile watch. And also, I think a lot of that comes down to the performances. I mean, James McAvoy, he's brilliant in the film. He is just brilliant. As are everyone else in the movie, all the performances are authentic, as I think the film wants them to be, Like, even the kids are good in this movie, and that was something I was skeptical about going in, because sometimes, I don't want to criticise child actors, because acting, from what I've heard of, from what I've read about, is a very difficult job, constantly doing the same scene over and over again, and it can be very long days on set. So I don't like criticising child actors, because that's not an easy profession to be a part of. But sometimes you watch child actors in movies and they're not the best. That's all I'll say there. But here, the child actors were totally believable. Like, I really bought into their performances. And I think the film wants you to feel like the performances are authentic, so you believe in everything going on. I think the film does a good job at making the situation in this movie feel authentic. And I admired that a lot, because even so, you've got James McAvoy in this film and Mackenzie Davis, two people who, have starred in Hollywood movies. Mackenzie Davis was in a Terminator film, and James McAvoy, who was part of the X-Men franchise, two actors who have been in Hollywood movies. You totally believe them in their roles, though, which sounds like a small thing, but I can't tell you how many times I've been to the cinema and I'm watching an actor that I really like in a movie, but I'm just like, yeah, you're, I don't know, George Clooney, or you're Brad Pitt, and I can't get past that. Whilst I didn't feel that so much, I didn't feel that at all, actually, with this movie. I found all the performances to be believable, and I found the setting, the aesthetic, and the overall film itself to be very authentic. I totally believed in everything going on, and to answer the question I put in the title of this podcast today, Speak No Evil, brutal or boring? The film is not boring. I mean, I will say the first 2/3 of the film, probably lean on the slow side, but it's not boring at all, in my opinion. And I did feel it was brutal. Now, would I have liked it to be more brutal? For sure. Because there are things that happen in the last third of the film when, everything starts going up in flames. When James McAvoy starts going crazy. I mean, at least it felt like the last third of the film, when that all started happening. The are things that happen there, and I'm like, oh, we just went a bit more. This could be so much more suspenseful and, really nail-biting, to the point that I don't know how it's going to end, but I think a part of me in the last third of the film, and this will probably be my biggest criticism, I think a part of me in the last third of the film knew that the film wasn't going to go that hard with its ending, wasn't going to be that dark with its ending, because it's a Hollywood production. It's a Blumhouse production, and Blumhouse made a lot of very popular horror movies over the past couple of years. Just look up the sort of films they made. They're the people behind the Halloween reboots, the Exorcist reboot that came out a couple of years ago, and they're a very famous Hollywood horror production studio. And when I saw in the opening credits, that not in the opening credits, in the opening, when you see all the production companies that financed the movie, when I saw that Blumhouse's name was attached, I was like, okay, this film isn't going to be, this film might not be quite as dark as the original, because even so, I haven't seen the original Speak No Evil. I had heard from a couple of film pundits that I follow online that the ending to the original Speak No Evil is far darker than the ending to this version of Speak No Evil, the remake of Speak No Evil that I'm reviewing in today's podcast. I had heard that the ending to the original is much darker, and when I realised it was a Hollywood production, because I didn't know it was until I was sat in the cinema watching it, I genuinely didn't. I was like, okay, it's not going to be as dark as perhaps the original was, and I did, on the bus ride home after watching this movie, I did look up the ending to the original Speak No Evil, and it is much darker, and I understand why they didn't go that route, but at the same time, they could have made this film far more brutal, because when the brutal moments do happen, yeah, they're brutal, and yeah, it's gruesome to a certain degree, but it doesn't feel quite as brutal as you want it to be. Visually it's brutal and everything like that. There's certain moments in the film where you see quite a bit of blood being splattered, but at the same time, it didn't feel brutal. Like, I didn't feel repulsed by the movie in its final act quite as much as I would have liked to. And there were decisions made in the last 5 minutes of the film. I was like, really? Okay, I don't believe that you would do that. There's one decision one character makes, and like, you are the most idiotic person I've ever met if you would do that in that situation, because you clearly wouldn't. It's just, decisions made in movies. There's one decision towards the end which almost ruined the entire film for me. I was like, really? I mean, it didn't almost ruin the entire film for me. I'm over exaggerating there, but there was one decision in the final 5 minutes of the film. I was like, that is so unbelievable. You just wouldn't do that. And it made the last 5 minutes of the film feel anticlimactic. I do feel the film could have had a better climax that was more thrilling and more suspenseful to really make this horror movie, one that I would return to perhaps yearly. One of those horror movies which I think a lot of people would be talking about, but I don't think the ending quite pulls it off. I think the ending, just mainly the last 5 minutes, lets itself down a bit, and that's my biggest criticism. The film isn't as dark in its ending as the original, and understandably so, but it's also not as, it's not as brutal, and it's not as thrilling, and it's not as suspenseful as I was hoping it was going to be. Like, I was sat there at about the hour mark in the film thinking, God, if they pull this off, this could end up being one of my top 10 films of the year. But it's not going to be. And plus, there were some scenes in the first, hour and 20 minutes of the film where I was like, is this really necessary? I wasn't sure why we're spending so long in certain moments. And the film has a weird focus on the song Eternal Flame, da 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 da. Can you feel my heart beating? Do you feel the same? Da 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 da. I tried to sing Eternal Flame there and I failed miserably. But you get the point I'm making. The film has a weird focus on Eternal Flame, which I didn't understand. I don't know why was the film focusing on that so much. I mean, it didn't focus on it loads. They made it sound like there's a whole 10-minute section of the film where they focus on that. In actuality, there's only about a 2-minute, maybe 3-minute section of the film that focuses on the song Eternal Flame. But I didn't really understand why that was in there. But that all being said, I do have my issues with the film, but I liked it quite a bit. I really liked it, actually, far more than I was expecting to. And I want to emphasize that because the film does a really great job at making you feel uneasy. It gets under your skin, as the best horror movies do, as the best thrillers do. It got under my skin and it made me feel disturbed in certain parts. Like, there were certain moments of the movie which was so uncomfortable that I had to look away from the screen to sort of break the tension away, to sort of make me feel less uncomfortable about what was happening in the moment, which I think the film wants you to do. It's a film which makes you feel uncomfortable, it makes you feel uneasy, and it does a great job at building up tension. I thought it was a really good film with really great performances and really great suspense for the most part. The last 5 minutes, I wish they were a bit better, but everything else before those last 5 minutes, was... But everything else before the last 5 minutes worked to me, and I thought it was a worthwhile watch. And so, all in all, I'm going to say that Speak No Evil, I'm going to say it's a 7.5 out of 10. Any film I think is a solid movie, I give a 7.5 out of 10, and that's exactly why that's exactly why I'm giving Speak No Evil a 7.5 out of 10. It's a solid movie. Do I wish it was a little bit better and more brutal in its big finale? The finale is not really big, I'm not sure why I said that, but do I wish it went a bit more brutal and darker? For sure, but it is still a dark movie. Like, once you find out what the twist is, like, okay, wow, that's quite dark. And then the twists that follow the twist, It's a dark movie, and I think it does a great job of making you feel uncomfortable, and making you feel uneasy, from the get-go, which is the thing I really admired the most about this film. Yeah, not boring at all, in my opinion. Not quite as brutal as I wanted it to be, but got under my skin and it made me feel uneasy. You know what? That was good enough for me with this film. And so, all in all, as I've already said, and as I'm going to say once more in this podcast today, Speak No Evil is a 7.5 out of 10 from me. Anyway, guys, that's it for today's podcast. If you have seen Speak No Evil, please let me know your thoughts on it in the comment section below. Maybe you hated the movie, or maybe you loved it. Whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comment section below. And as always, thank you for watching or listening to this podcast. And if you haven't yet, please click down below and like and subscribe on this podcast. And look forward to many more podcasts coming very, very soon on this channel. As I already said, thank you as always for watching or listening to this podcast. And I suppose that's it. So I will see you guys again soon. But bye for now. Bye.